The voting rights groups are speaking out against one of President Trump's newest executive orders, which calls for sweeping changes to how elections are conducted. The order, which Mr. Trump signed yesterday, seeks to require people to prove their citizenship when they register to vote. Critics say the executive order could disenfranchise tens of millions of Americans who don't have the means to prove their citizenship. There are also questions about whether the president has any constitutional authority over federal elections, which are operated on the state level. I'm joined now by Rick Hasen, professor of law and political science at UCLA Law. He's also an NBC News election law analyst. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Let's dive right in. As you look at this executive order, how many U.S. citizens could potentially be disenfranchised by it, based on your estimation?
Well, we do know from experience in states that have required documentary proof of citizenship that tens of thousands of people have lost their ability to register to vote. In Kansas, I think we have similar numbers in Arizona. I think if you look at this across the country, who has a passport? Someone who is wealthier, someone who's going to travel. Do people have access to their birth certificate? The kinds of documents that you would need, they're not always easy to come by. And the whole point of trying to require this is to prevent a very small amount of fraud. So you're taking the risk of disenfranchising lots and lots of people to stop almost no actual fraudulent voting in our elections.
Well, let me actually read the election clause in the Constitution, and then we'll discuss it on the other side. It says, the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. But the Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations, except as to the places of choosing senators. So does this order actually stand in violation with that law?
Right. So what the way we run our elections in this country is that we have this highly decentralized system. We mostly let states decide what the rules are, and we give Congress supervisory authority, like when Congress passes something like the National Voter Registration Act, which says that there's a federal form that anyone can fill out if they want to register to vote. Congress also used that same power to establish something called the United States Election Assistance Commission, which does things like giving out money for voting machines upgrades and gives advice for how states should run their elections. The biggest headline here, more than even the stuff about documentary proof of citizenship, is that Trump is trying to take over the EAC and trying to push his will through there, giving the president a role in trying to run elections that the president simply doesn't have. The president is absent in the Constitution from any role in running federal elections.
What do you see as the most likely legal challenge or challenges to this executive order?
Right. So the first question is whether or not Trump can require the Election Assistance Commission to do his bidding, like change the federal form that's used for registering to vote. That's a big question generally in terms of whether we could have these independent agencies under the so-called unitary executive theory. But also, this is a special kind of agency that Congress created after the disputed 2000 election. You can't have more than 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans on this commission. It's supposed to require bipartisan cooperation. There's going to be a huge question whether Trump has the power to force the EAC to do what it wants. And then beyond that, he's trying to stop states from doing things like accepting and counting ballots that were cast before Election Day in the mail, but arrive after Election Day. And he's directed his DOJ to go after states. He's directed DOJ and DHS to try to subpoena documents from states to figure out their voter registration records. I think a lot of these things are going to be challenged as exceeding the president's authority, as not following federal law, and it likely will be tied up for some time in court.
All right. Well, we'll track it very closely. Rick Hasen, thank you so much. We really appreciate your insights today.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.